All right. So there are a lot of reasons, okay, that people choose to train. They're all probably reasonable. There may be some that are just like, that's not a thing that's going to happen. But we're going to encourage people to go out and actually do the training. So the point of what we're going to get into is we're not going to kind of philosophically talk about this number of sets, this number of reps, this and that, and whatever else. Like that's the purview in a lot of ways of a very different class. Okay. Take advanced strength and conditioning. Andy will talk to you until you're blue in the face about periodization and all of those things. Okay. You just go and bro out. It's great. Those things are important. What we're going to cover for the most part, though, is right. What are the very basic things that change when we resistance train? And then we're going to get a little bit into the why do they change? And I think if we understand why things change and what we need to do during a bout of exercise, during a bout of change, or bout of training to evoke that change, then you should be able to think your way through, if I work out this way, is that going to work or not? Okay. You should be able to watch that next TikTok video and be like, those people are full of shit. That's never going to work. Okay. Or that's not going to work any better than the other thing that we're already doing or something else. Okay. So we're going to go kind of very big picture. Why do people train? We want to be stronger, right? We want to have bigger muscles. Those are the two primary responses to consistent resistance training. Okay? You get stronger, your muscles get bigger. Okay? And then there's lots of other people, or kind of another consequence of being at least stronger, if not necessarily bigger, is performance may increase. And that may be sport performance, right? It may be running faster, jumping higher, okay? Maybe it's not so much swinging a golf club better or shooting a basketball better, but it could be, okay? Or in a more broad sense that probably doesn't apply to you guys. It'll get back to what Veer said on you get to be sometimes my age, okay? Definitely my parents were here this weekend. But it becomes about actual performance of daily activities. Can I walk up a flight of stairs? Can I get myself into and out of the bathtub or on and off the toilet? Okay. Anybody ever had really, really sore quads and glutes from leg day and you got to try to sit down on the toilet and that shit is hard. Okay. If you lack a certain amount of strength, then things that all of us generally take for granted can become difficult. And then if they become difficult and you can't do them by yourself, then you have to have help. And now the depression begins. Okay, I'm serious, right? Lack of physical independence with aging is highly linked to depression. Okay, then you can't stand up, you can't walk around, you can't stay active. Then obesity, you become more obese, you have more cardiovascular disease, you lose the ability to get the benefits of exercise, and there's this terrible downward spiral of function and health because of those things. Okay? So why you resistance train now may be very different than why you might need to resistance train, right? My father's 78, he still does some resistance training. Okay? Why he needs to may be very different than what you guys are doing. Okay? Or even me. But it's all going to be important. We're going to talk about how do we cause a change? What is the stimulus? Okay? What is the stimulus? We'll then talk about what changes and then kind of the mechanisms of things that are going to work there. You all have probably seen this first part, but then the second sort of statement here is at the core of all adaptations in exercise physiology. Okay? When we train, you get better at doing exactly what it is that you're doing during training. If you squat, through a full range of motion, guess what you get better at doing? Squatting through a full range of motion. Okay? We hope that that will translate to something else, because most of us, right, don't do this a whole lot in our daily lives. Not a lot of that going on, right? But we hope that that transfers. It's Monday. When the bros bench press today, what are they getting better at doing? Bench press. Think about the last time you did a this ever in your life. Ever. Maybe you're an offensive lineman in football and you got to push someone. Maybe. Bench press may be one of the single most unfunctional movements like in the history of all resistance training, right? But everybody wants to know, how much can you bench, right? So anyway, this is a concept called training specificity. Whatever you do, that's what you're going to get better at. That's what you're going to get better at. If you lift 3 sets of 6 with a certain weight, guess what you get better at doing? 3 sets of 6 with that weight. Okay? If you run, you get better at running sometimes, but maybe not biking. Okay? If you do push-ups, you get better at doing push-ups. There we go. Okay? That's the idea of specificity. Whatever we are doing, that provides the stimulus. That is going to provide the second point, the disruption of internal homeostasis in the body that drives the adaptation. Okay? That drives the adaptation. Everybody stand up. We're about to disrupt some homeostasis. Okay? Everybody stand up. I'll do it with you. Okay? We're here. Ta-da. All right? Everybody with me. Okay? Squat. Come on. Squat. Hold it. No, just squat and hold. Okay? We're holding. Up a little. Hold. Down. Hold. Up a little. Good. Down. Hold. Anybody's legs starting to burn just a little bit? Yes. Okay. We are disrupting homeostasis. All right, up and relax. Metabolism changes. Force production changes. Okay? The distribution of that force across the muscle membrane. The distribution of that force across your bones, across your ligaments, across your tendons. All of those things are not what we get at rest. The internal environment in the bones, the ligaments, the tendons, inside your muscle fiber, okay? We're changing blood flow and sending more blood to your legs that are being used. We're changing cardiac output. We're changing heart rate and stroke volume. All of those things are different than rest. That's a disruption of homeostasis. Okay? Homeostasis is calm, normal balance. Y'all can sit down. Okay? If we want something to change, if we want a physiological adaptation to take place, we have to change and disrupt homeostasis. Okay? That's why, for most of you, walking is not good enough to change your endurance capacity unless you walk really, really far. Okay? Because it's not enough of a disruption of homeostasis. That's why if you go and you've been lifting and you lift the same thing over and over and over again, and it's not difficult, there's no disruption in homeostasis. So there's no stimulus to adapt. Okay? So we're going to keep these two things in mind when we talk about our responses, not just to resistance training, but to aerobic training, to any other kind of thing. Okay? We will adapt to whatever we're doing, because whatever it is that we're doing causes a very specific disruption of homeostasis. Or maybe it doesn't, but okay? And that's going to drive those adaptations. Does that concept make sense to you guys? That we have to have those as our guiding principles, or everything else is not going to make sense. Okay? Everything else is not going to make sense. Okay. Anybody do any computer programming? Anybody ever write code, do something, had a class and all of that? None of you? Okay, a couple of y'all. The computer's never wrong when you write code. It does exactly what you tell it to do. So if it doesn't work, it's on you as the code. Okay? And so this is sort of like a computer code that we have written. Okay? And so I want you to think about how you evaluate a resistance training program, how you choose what you're doing, how we interact with this material in this sort of paradigm. Okay? And what I want you to do when we talk about responses to training is very backwards. I want you to start, when you think about things, at the end. Okay? Start at the end. They tell us, if you take any class in teaching pedagogy, that you have to start your class with, what do we want you guys to know? Start at the end. What knowledge do I want you all to have when we leave this class? And then work backwards, right? Well, with training, you need to know your training goals before anything else. Okay? Somebody says, hey, you should train this way or that way, or what do you think about this? Your first question should always be, what's your goal? What are you trying to get out of this? Okay? Is your goal to bench press more? Is it to squat more? Is it to have giant quads? Is it to have the world's biggest biceps? Okay? Is it to be able to go up a flight of stairs? What's your goal? Because if we know what our goal is, we can work our way backwards. Okay? What's my goal? What is preventing me from achieving that goal right now? What do I need to change to get me to that goal? Okay? That change, we're going to call it a chronic change, a longer term change. This is the adaptation. Okay? My goal is to have bigger muscles, right? I need to induce something chronically over and over again for a long time to make my muscles bigger. All right? So we're going to work our way back from all of that. All right? Once you know what that is, then you can decide, what exercise do I do today? Because whatever I'm doing, we just did some squats, right? That evoked some acute change in the physiology, in the muscles that I was using, right? There's mechanical load, there's metabolic stress, there apparently is hormone release. I don't know what the hell that word is, okay? That is there. But I exercise, things change, that is disrupting homeostasis, okay? I did a thing today, it disrupted the homeostasis in the muscle that I wanted, where I want the change to take place, right? Or in the bones or something in that way. It disrupts the homeostasis. That disruption, this acute change, is the stimulus. This is the thing that you did today that will drive all of those changes that will occur later today, tomorrow, the day after. Okay? Does that make sense, guys? Whatever you're doing now, you work a certain muscle group, you induce certain things in those muscles by how you're training that disrupt their homeostasis. That stimulates then an adaptation. The body does not like ever, ever, ever to be out of homeostasis. Okay? Now we're back to Tyler's things, the response to an environmental stressor and all of these things. The body does not like to be out of homeostasis. So you work out today, you disrupt the homeostasis. That provides a stimulus where we're going to try to have adaptations so that later this week on second bench day, potentially when I work out and I do the same thing, there is a smaller disruption of homeostasis. Okay? A smaller disruption. That means if I get a smaller one, that something physically has changed, and that's my adaptation. Now, most things aren't going to change that quick. Okay? Some things might change in a few days. Most things take longer. And so you have to then continue with your workout, disrupting homeostasis, stimulating these adaptations that eventually lead to I have bigger muscles. I have stronger muscles. Okay. And we'll dig into what actually goes on, what do we need to activate to drive protein synthesis to get bigger muscles. When you're stronger, what has changed? Where in cognition to contraction have things changed? Because it changes. Okay. What changes in actin and myosin? What changes in the cross-bridge cycle? How do these things change over time? And it's this disruption of homeostasis, whereas you work out today, it's hard. You work out later this week, it's a little bit less hard. Do the same thing over and over and over again, you eventually adapt, and now that same workout no longer disrupts homeostasis, and you have to change. And that change is called progressive overload. That change is what drives the concept of periodization that all of Andy's advanced strength and conditioning class is about. Okay? At its most basic, it needs to be hard. Make it hard today because that disrupts homeostasis. The next time you do it, if it's not hard, change it and make it hard again. And that continues the disruption of homeostasis. And now you're better off than 80% of people that train. Okay? You're better off than 80% of people. There we go. Okay. On Wednesday, we will pick up talking about what are the actual adaptations, what changes, how do they change, et cetera, et cetera. Ty says there'll be a worksheet on resistance training that will be up hopefully by Wednesday. Okay. If you take and you choose to take the post assessment, it's on Canvas, there's an assignment, it's in the module that says assessment, it's due on Friday. We'll get an envelope to Melissa if you want to come turn it in anonymously here in just a few minutes. Okay? All right. Bye, y'all.
No, that's just like a. It's like you do. That's what it's like to me. There's like literally. Yeah.
Thank you.